Really slow on the M1 southbound in West Yorkshire towards Wakefield, coming from the M62 following an earlier accident. The Surrey stretch of the M25 is blocked anti-clockwise at A to Reigate following an accident, and on the Hertfordshire stretch further round, the inside lane on that 3-lane stretch is closed off just after junction 24 at Potters Bar. A lorry's broken down in the roadworks, causing long queues back through the Homesdale Tunnel. And that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
We're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save it for a rainy day. You'll also receive 2 brand new designer watches and a Mulberry handbag, so you can really look the part this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's Thursday the 20th of March. Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. On the show tonight, the French government is planning to send a survival manual to all households containing advice on what to do in the event of an armed conflict. Do you think Britain should be doing the same? And we'll be showcasing my interview with Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, who has insisted MPs must get a veto on deploying British troops in Ukraine. A new report has hit out at Brexit's critics, saying it wasn't that bad as Remainers like to say. Well, we knew that, didn't we? We'll be picking up the findings very shortly. Plus, the mother of a teenager brutally killed in a machete attack, whom I spoke to on this show last summer, joins me again after her son's killer was due for early release. But there's been a major update. You won't want to miss it. All of that to come, but first the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Chris, thank you very much and good evening. The top story, Sir Keir Starmer says the time for planning is now when it comes to his peace deal for Ukraine during a visit to a military base in London. During that visit, Sir Keir Starmer praised the personnel for their bravery and commitment. He said there must be a defended deal to end the Ukraine war with security arrangements in place to ensure it's upheld. The Prime Minister also warned any peace deal without anything behind it is something the Russian president will breach, adding Vladimir Putin would face severe consequences for breaching any future ceasefire deal in Ukraine.
The support that we've been putting in for Ukraine over many years now. I won't go into the details of what you've been doing from here, but it has been hugely important to what has happened on the ground in Ukraine for 3 long years of this conflict. And, of course, on a personal level, thank you to the team here that facilitated, planned and made sure that my visit in and out of Ukraine just a few weeks ago was a huge success. None of that comes without the hard work that you put in.
President Zelensky says a series of Russian airstrikes show the world their true attitude towards peace, describing Mr. Putin's recent statement suggesting he's ready for a ceasefire as propaganda. Zelensky's been briefing European leaders on last night's call with Donald Trump, who suggested the US could take ownership of Ukraine's nuclear power plants to act as a form of security guarantee. However, responding this afternoon, Zelensky says all nuclear power plants belong to the people of Ukraine. He says these are state-owned plants. It is not private property in Ukraine. In other news, the High Court has heard that Tommy Robinson was moved to a closed wing in prison after it received reports he had a mark on his head and would be killed by a lifer. 42-year-old Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, is serving an 18-month prison sentence for contempt of court after breaching an injunction. Today, his barristers told the High Court he should be allowed to bring a legal challenge over his segregation from other prisoners at HMP Woodhill in Milton Keynes, with the court told that he'd suffered an evident decline in his mental health. And former Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has been cleared in a police investigation into the SNP's finances. Speaking outside her home today, Ms Sturgeon said there was never a scrap of evidence against her and that this was the outcome she'd always expected. The announcement came as her husband, ex-SNP Chief Executive Peter Murrell, appeared at Edinburgh Sheriff Court charged with embezzlement. The probe, which has been ongoing since July 2021, is linked to the spending of around £600,000 raised by SNP supporters to be earmarked for Scottish independence campaigning. Murrell, who was SNP Chief Exec since 1999, resigned in March 2 years ago amid a row over party numbers. And those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, the Prime Minister today met with defence chiefs to turn his political concept of a peacekeeping force in Ukraine into military plans. Peacekeepers could operate in Ukraine to deter further Russian attacks if a deal to end the war is reached. But the Kremlin said, after talks with President Trump this week, that European peacekeepers in Ukraine would be unacceptable. Across the Channel, France is reportedly preparing to issue a survival manual to all households in the event of an armed conflict. We took to the streets of London earlier today to find out if people here are ready to fight for their country.
Yes, for sure, because you cannot rely on what is going from the east side with Mr. Putin and coming also from the west side with Mr. Trump.
I don't think they should do the same. What's to worry about?
Being Danish, but living here, I know that in Denmark and Sweden they're doing the same. Probably not a bad call. I mean, we're living in a mad world at the moment, but hopefully it's more preparation than need.
I think Britain should, just so that they can protect their citizens and their people.
That's Londoners saying they don't need a survival manual to fear any attack on this country. Now, joining me now to discuss this is Sir Richard Dearlove, the former head of MI6. Sir Richard, welcome to GBN Tonight. Thank you for coming on and joining us.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, do you think it's great to see you. Is France exaggerating a threat here, or is it realistic that we should try the same?
I don't think it's exaggerating a threat. There is concern. I mean, there are other precedents in other European countries where they issue these bulletins from time to time to give advice on what you should do in a national security emergency. And it doesn't only apply to an invasion, it applies to a natural catastrophe or other things. We haven't done it in the UK that I'm aware of for a very long time, but you know, perhaps in the current climate, it's not a bad idea.
Does it remind you at all, maybe, of the Cold War and being prepared for Russian attacks then, back in the 80s and 70s?
Well, I think during the Cold War, the threat was rather different because we weren't talking about conventional warfare. We were talking about nuclear exchanges. And the threat of a nuclear exchange and what one would do in those circumstances is rather more complex. The survival issues are rather more difficult to take account of. So I don't think it's a revival of the Cold War to that extent. I think the concept seems to have changed to the extent that we're now thinking about conventional conflict on the European continent.
Do you think we should see a similar manual of readiness issued to Brits here, Sir Richard?
Maybe not yet. We are an island, so we have that geopolitical advantage. But on the other hand, I'm pleased to see that the government, and I disagree with them on a lot of things, are paying a lot of attention to defence and security at the moment. So at least they are, as it were, encouraging debate and, growing awareness of the situation. And you're showing now photographs of the Prime Minister visiting this new submarine. So, I mean, that it's important that there's an awareness amongst the population generally that we have to pay much more attention to national security, defence in particular, and areas like I used to work in as well.
Yes, in intelligence. Are you comfortable with the security, the confidence, the coalition of the willing that we're seeing being developed? I mean, some countries, Poland and Germany, may not commit troops. Do you think we might be on our own?
Well, I can understand why Poland and Germany are reluctant, and I'm not quite sure what this actually means. Does it mean peacekeeping? What role are these troops going to have? I mean, there are precedents. You've got the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, which is an armistice line. The peacekeepers there are purely observers and reporters, and you've got a massive armed encampment on either side of the border.
Yeah.
I think personally this is a bit premature because the negotiations, such as they are, carrying on over the issue of a ceasefire, haven't really made any significant progress yet. So what role are we going to play? It's dangerous to, as it were, get involved in something that we're not really clear what it is, what role the army might play. So I'm a bit worried that, this is not really identified. It's not really detailed. It's not really pinned down as to what it's all about.
Yes, and we'll hear from Kevin Badenoch on that issue later. Sir Richard Dearlove, while I've got you, I must ask you about reports at the weekend that you had warned in a report in March 2020, in a report to the government, saying that it was beyond reasonable doubt that COVID-19 was engineered in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. That was dismissed at the time by advisors to the Prime Minister. Can you shed some light on that, please?
Well, I think now those of us who thought at the time the scientific evidence was strong that this came out of the Wuhan Institute's experimentation, that it was the result of gain-of-function experiments on the virus, have largely been indicated. Every sort of serious commentator now accepts our analysis, whether it's people in the United States, the New York Times have changed their view, CIA have changed their view, the German intelligence service have changed their view. And at the time, those of us who came forward with this analysis were rubbished. I'm pleased to say that, Boris, when he was Prime Minister, was convinced by our newspapers, but persuaded by his scientific advisors to rubbish. Yeah. Well, they rubbished us. And I think that this is an important issue. I think it's important that more is understood about the science and why we made this analysis, and why, if they had listened to us more carefully and at least entered a debate, we might have had different policy outcomes with relation to particularly lockdown and other issues relating, quite complex issues relating to the vaccines that were created. Yeah, so I'm really pleased that this story is being given significant amount of attention and airtime now internationally.
Thank you, Sir Richard. Actually, the UK government says it supports the World Health Organization in its ongoing expert study of the origins of COVID-19 and seeks robust, transparent and scientific review.
Cop-out. The WHO is a cop-out. Look, let's just rely on our own scientific analysis on this.
OK. Look, Sir Richard Dearlove, thank you for that, and thank you for touching on COVID in a week of the 5-year anniversary of the lockdowns. Thank you for joining us tonight, sir. I do appreciate it. Joining me now at GB News studio in Westminster is Sir John Redwood, the former Conservative MP and Minister, as well as the Men on Sunday's commentator, Dan Hodges. Welcome both to GBN tonight. To you first there, Sir John Redwood. We talked there about defence and defence around. Is France exaggerating the threat, do you think, to their... Is that why they're issuing a manual to their people?
I think they're exaggerating, and I think it's silly to scare their public. And the bit I saw, the advice didn't look very helpful either. I mean, they said that before a crisis actually hit, but they weren't telling you when, you needed to fill your bath and put a cover over so that you had enough water to get through 14 days. Well, yes. Have some bottled water in if you really are getting worried, but it did seem pretty bad advice. But on the other point you were making today, I don't know why our Prime Minister is wrongly trying to get together a coalition of the very unwilling, because there is no peace to maintain at the moment. And the Russians are very clear they're not going to sign a peace that would allow our troops anywhere near Ukraine.
Dan Hodges, is Keir Starmer wrong to try and create this coalition of the willing?
No, he's absolutely right. Frankly, I can't believe what I just heard from John Redwood, the idea that we should allow the Russian... I can't believe that, an eminent conservative such as John Redwood is now saying we should allow the give the Russians a veto.
It's not a question of allowing them. They won't sign a peace. We need a peace, and they won't sign one with us as the people
as we can see,
the force.
As we've seen, Donald Trump has been, we've been told Donald Trump, expert the art of the deal, has been trying to secure a peace agreement from Putin, and he's not getting one. And you're literally sitting there saying we should allow Moscow...
No, I don't want them to allow Moscow to do anything. I'm just being a realist.
John,
there's either no peace treaty or there's one that, on that issue, will not allow our troops anywhere near the place. So why are we preparing for something that doesn't exist?
John, you literally just said we should not be allowed to put British troops into a sovereign country.
No, I didn't at all. I said there would not be an agreement that allowed that because Russia has said they won't sign one, so there won't be a peace.
Right, so you're saying...
So the war will go on.
So you're saying in order to secure the peace, we should give Vladimir Putin a guarantee we shouldn't put troops on the ground in Ukraine?
No, you don't give them any guarantee at all. You wait and see what the agreement is, and then you see if Britain has a role where it could be helpful.
But I'm sorry, should we... a significant part of the peace is a guarantee for Ukraine that if we secure a peace deal, we secure a ceasefire, Russia will not invade again. Well, that will be sorted out between
Ukraine and Russia with the intermediation of the Americans. Obviously, I hope there is a good settlement for Ukraine. If there is then a role, by all means. But you shouldn't try and preempt it when one side is making it very clear they don't want this.
It's not about preempting it. If Ukraine is going to sign up to some sort of ceasefire and peace agreement, they need security guarantees. They need guarantees that Russia is not going to invade.
Well, and then there will be a force. It may be a UN force, for example.
But we shouldn't be part of it.
Well, that would depend on what they agree. That's the point. I'm not preempting it. I'm not in favour of Russia. You are deliberately misconstruing what I said.
I'm not misconstruing what you said. You just said there should be a force in Ukraine to prevent Russia from invading. And I'm saying I agree with that.
No, I didn't say that either. You're inventing all these things. I said we should wait and see what Ukraine and Russia agree through the American intermediation, if anything.
Right.
And then we might be able to
In your view, if there is a ceasefire, what security guarantee should be given to Ukraine to ensure Russia does not breach that ceasefire?
Well, whatever has been agreed between the three parties that are negotiating. We're not part of the talks.
Who are the three parties in this?
Well, the two crucial parties are the combatants, and America is organising the talks. We're not part of it.
Why? So Britain has no role? Britain has no role?
Clearly not, because we're not part of the talks. We're not in the room. That's why it's very difficult for us to offer things.
Right. So the most fundamental security issue facing Europe for the last 20 or 30 years, you don't think Britain should have a role in that?
Well, I think we should have a role if the parties want us to, yes.
Which parties? Putin?
Well, the agreement is going to... You're being very obtuse about this.
OK.
We're not in the room. We're not negotiating. We are well-intentioned. We will help if we can.
Can I ask a quick question about what Secretary Dillett said about COVID? Just briefly, I know the Mail Sunday has been leading on this.
Absolutely.
Do you think it was a leak from the Wuhan lab? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's almost been...
And is it time the government woke up to that and said what had happened in your world, in your view?
Yes, absolutely. The government should admit the truth. I mean, we were the paper that first exposed this. I mean, we saw Sir Richard Dearlove saying about the criticism he received at the time. We, on the Mail on Sunday, my colleague Glenn Owen, who wrote the story, received massive, criticism.
It's very early on in the pandemic, wasn't it?
Pushed back very early on in the pandemic, and it's proven to be accurate.
John Redwood, quickly on the COVID-19 origins. Was it a bat? Was it?
Well, I have no idea what the origins are, and I would hope that by now we would have had a proper investigation so that we can have some evidence as to where it did come from. I've been a very strong critic throughout of the extent and the duration of the lockdowns. I voted against quite a number of the measures. I thought that the response was very poor when it came to cleaning up the air in public buildings. There are also things I think we need to have proper investigation of.
You're not blaming China?
Well, I don't know, and so no, I don't make things up. No.
John Redwood and Hodges, thank you both. Now, up next, should MPs get a veto on the PM's plans to possibly commit British troops on the ground in Ukraine? I spoke to the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, to get her views. Thank you, guys. That's great. Thank you.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, the end of February marks the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan, and the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer was quick to wish all Muslims Ramadan Mubarak.
Yes, he was, and the royal family also took to their Twitter feed, and they have millions of followers to mark the occasion, sending their best wishes to Muslims in the UK, Commonwealth and all around the world.
Which is all very nice, and quite right, of course, because there are many, many Muslims who are in the Commonwealth, which the royal family heads. However, what's been said for the Christians?
Zippo.
Because there's been a deafening silence from, well, the royal family, politicians and many others as Christians mark the beginning of Lent, despite the fact the King is, of course, head of the Church of England.
Yes, it's all rather disappointing. Shall we get the reaction of the former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II, Dr Gavin Ashenden? Thank you very much indeed, Gavin, for coming on. Are Christians being forgotten in this country? I am taken aback by the fact that the royal family would take to their Twitter feed, which is watched by millions of people, to celebrate the holiday of Ramadan, but no mention of Lent, no mention of Shrove Tuesday, no mention of Ash Wednesday, nothing.
Yes, it's all very odd, and it's not easy to understand, because as you quite rightly said, it's the right and courteous thing to do to wish Muslims well on what is for them a very important feast day. Why would we not want to be courteous and generous and supportive to people quite rightly pursuing their own religious devotions? But it's as well as two-tier policing, we appear to be having two-tier religion in this country, because as you say, there's complete silence for the Christians, who still make up nearly 50% of the country.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, the Conservatives launched their local election campaign today in Beaconsfield, and I went there to interview the leader, Kemi Badenoch. I wanted to ask her about other issues away from that, worrying GB News viewers. Let's hear what she had to say. Kevin Badenoch, thank you for joining us tonight on GB News. Now, you won 1,973 Tory seats last time. That will fall quite a lot, everyone thinks, on May the 1st. How bad will it be for your party?
We're going to be fighting for every single vote. We're working hard, getting out on the streets, but you're absolutely right, Chris. The last time we fought these elections was 2021. We had the vaccine bounce. Boris Johnson was Prime Minister. We were picking up seats like Hartlepool that had only ever been Labour. Totally different. Last year, we suffered our worst general election defeat ever in our 200-year history. And we're still in the aftermath of that. So the results we need to compare to know whether we're doing well are not 4 years ago, but actually just last July. So I'm not putting a number on it. I'm just making sure... No, I think it's really important that we make sure everybody goes out and fights for every single vote.
Yeah. We've heard from you on some policy ideas this week. No mention of withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights. You're doing a lawfare review. Why is that? Are you going soft on that commitment to look at it at least?
I've always said that if we need to leave the ECHR, we should leave. And that it's not a silver bullet. It's not the most radical thing we could do. There are so many laws that are causing problems, and we need to look at all of them in the round. And I learned this lesson from what happened during Brexit. I wasn't an MP when that referendum took place, and I became an MP in 2017 and saw that there'd been no plan. And what I'm saying now is that I'm not just going to rush out and say we're going to leave this and we're going to do that without having thought it through. So a credible plan first, and then the policy. And that's what the launch of the policy programme this week was about.
We talked before about no policies till 2028, but we're seeing policies early on. Are you panicking with the threat?
I haven't said no policies until 2028.
One of your spokesmen did it.
I said that we're going to have a programme that runs for a period of time. But I've come out with policies such as indefinite leave to remain and the changes to that. We need to stop the conveyor belts to British citizenship, for example. And when we see Labour doing really terrible things like the family farms tax, what they're doing with business property relief, we will reverse that. We will scrap the nonsense they're doing, VAT on school fees. So we will have policies. But on the big things, it's not just announcements anymore, because lots of politicians just tell people what they want to hear. We're not doing that. We're going to be telling the truth. The Conservative Party is under new leadership. We're doing things differently. We're not just going to rush out with announcements telling people what they want to hear. They're going to get truths, even when they're hard truths.
And they're hard truths. Well, immigration being one truth. JD Vance said this week immigration has made Britain lazy, and now we're stagnating. You've said it was a mistake, or you've wish you hadn't allowed all those legal arrivals through in 1 year. Is he right, though? The lazy issue is quite a tough choice.
No, I think
all about Britain.
I didn't actually hear the comments, but I think what I've read around them, and I think what people mean by that is that there's a big difference between high-skilled versus low-skilled immigration. I remember, when I was a new MP, and I had, the science institutes in my constituency say we're not getting high-skilled people. And that was something that we said, let's try and do that. Instead, we had lots of people with low or no skills, sometimes with illegal migration. But the other thing that happens is that when you have lots of people coming in with low skills, doing low wages, it drags wages down, which means some people decide it's not worth working, and they stay at home, creates a benefits problem. So it's all interlinked, and we need to fix all of that.
Is he wrong saying lazy? Is that wrong?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what the comments were,
Understood.
but I think that it's really important that we deal with migration, which is far too high, but also at the same time look at work and skills.
Yeah.
They all fit together.
Just turn to Ukraine. Lots of GB News viewers concerned about this. You said you want a consensus in the House of Commons on boots on the ground, British boots on the ground. Is that a vote of MPs before that can happen?
I think that a vote would be very helpful to know exactly what it is we're voting for. What is it we're giving consent to? I told the Prime Minister that I was not giving him a blank cheque. Ideally, we should not be having any boots on the ground. What is the situation that's going to be if it does happen? Will the US be supporting us, for example? How many people? What happens if they get attacked? Are we then in direct conflict? There's so many questions. So it's not about just making an announcement, we'll put boots on the ground. These are lives of young British men and women. We need to look after them. We can't just send them all around the world just because we want to tell a story or make an announcement. We've got to look after our soldiers. We've got to look after our armed forces. So a vote would be helpful in that respect.
Indeed. We're speaking in Lent. Why are politicians so not too keen to embrace Lent? It's a Christian tradition.
Who says we're not embracing it?
Well,
I've given up alcohol for Lent.
Have you?
It's very difficult.
But it seems that there's an embarrassment, like a nervousness about
Really?
Christian tradition in this country. Do you feel that?
I certainly don't feel that. I'm not a religious person, so I don't like, too much showiness when it comes to religion, but we believe in freedom of religion in this country. People should be allowed to practice their religion freely. They just shouldn't be imposing it on others. It's a very, very private thing. But I think maybe just a lot of people aren't religious, but certainly those who are, I don't think are afraid to say so.
There's some polling of jail partners last night in Grimsby. They said about you personally, they thought you weren't a leader, these people, no impact whatsoever. Who? One of them had forgotten you existed. Do you feel you're not cutting through? Is it hard to cut through against a Labour majority of the scale of July?
Well, this is the thing that I keep telling everyone, that this is a marathon, not a sprint. How long did the last opposition take to get back in? 14 years. Before then, 13 years. Before then, 18 years. And now, after 2 weeks, people were saying, well, you're not cutting through. Let's try and find someone else. It's 4 months now. This is a marathon, not a sprint. What I'm doing is making sure that we start to rebuild trust with the public. There is a lot of work I have to do behind the scenes, in-house, in my own back office, with MPs, fixing our campaign machine, as well as doing the outward stuff. People will start to see the returns in time.
OK. And just finally, you dismissed Nigel Farage as a showbiz star. Would you go on a reality TV show? Never?
Never.
Love Island?
Nope.
No.
I don't.
How long would you last? I mean,
No. I don't like that sort of thing. I like politics.
You're an engineer. We know
yes,
all that.
I'm not exactly. I'm an engineer. I'm not an actress. I don't want to be, on TV while people watching me eat horrible things.
No.
That's not for me.
You've got a luxury.
Nigel can have that.
Desert Island is a luxury. What's your luxury?
Luxury on Desert Island.
Yes.
Caught me off guard there.
What wouldn't you miss?
Luxury? Probably my Netflix subscription. Yes, that would be it.
OK.
Yes.
Kemi Badenoch, thank you for joining us tonight on GBN Tonight, and see you on the campaign trail.
Thank you, Chris.
There you have it. Now, joining me to discuss what was said there by Kemi Badenoch is Sir John Redwood, the former Conservative MP and Minister, and Mail Sunday commentator Dan Hodges. Dan Hodges, to you first. How will that remark that I think striking by Kemi Badenoch, that she wants a vote on the deploying British troops in Ukraine, go down in Downing Street?
The fact she wants a vote, I think that's fine. I think Downing Street has accepted that. I think what alarm, I'm not entirely sure it'll alarm Downing Street. I think Downing Street may actually be quite pleased about it. But I think what alarms me is the implication from Kemi Badenoch that she doesn't feel British troops should be part of any security guarantee for Ukraine.
Ideally, we should be having boots on boots on the ground.
Ideally, we shouldn't have any. I mean, that is something that will, frankly, let's be honest, that is something that will have delighted Vladimir Putin this evening.
So, John Redwood.
Well, I don't think it would delight Putin at all, and I'm sure that wasn't the aim. It may well be that the UN is the right body if there is a peace that needs policing in that way. But I think she's quite right to raise the issues about how many troops, how long would they be there, what are the rules of engagement, would there be American air cover, would there be NATO intelligence, what kind of backup would they have, because our very professional army is small and stretched, and it's used to collaborating with our NATO partners led by the Americans.
And you've been there in 2003 with Ian Duncan-Smith and the Iraq invasion. You were concerned, but you were whipped to vote for that invasion.
Yes, I think it was one of the mistakes I made, because I did vote for that invasion, and then we discovered that what we'd been told wasn't exactly the right story. But out of loyalty to Ian and out of the fact that our Prime Minister was assuring us it was essential we did so, I think I made a mistake.
Dan Hodges, Kemi Badenoch kept saying there, this is a marathon, not a sprint, but isn't she a marathon runner in a sprint? Is that the problem?
Well, I think the thing that struck me from that was Kemi Badenoch, in that context, said that people should remember it took Labour 14 years to get back into power. But the thing she didn't mention was, yes, it took Labour 14 years to get back into power, but it also, in that process, Labour had to ditch 2 leaders before they actually got to the person who would ultimately become the Prime Minister. And the other thing Kemi Badenoch didn't mention was that within that 14 years, it was broadly a straight Labour-Tory fight. And Kemi Badenoch's, it seems to me, fundamental strategic problem is she is focusing on how she defeats Keir Starmer. What she needs to focus on is how she defeats Nigel Farage. That is the existential
So what's your approach on the benefit cuts, for example, when that vote happens? What's the Tory approach on that?
On benefits cuts, to me, it's very clear the Tories should oppose the benefit cuts, because the benefit cuts...
Even though they want the cuts?
Yeah, but they shouldn't want the cuts. That's the point. Nobody should want the cuts because the cuts are wrong.
But their policy of the election last year was cuts.
But that's the classic point. This is exactly the point. Kemi Badenoch just told us in the interview with you this was a new Conservative Party. But then when it comes to policies like the benefit cuts, she reverts to the manifesto that, as she said, led the Tories to the worst defeat they've had in their history.
Sir John Redwood, in other comments today, she thought they might win 0 councillors or very few, and then she said that it won't be that bad. But they are starting off with 973 Tory councillors, and they could lose half that many, couldn't they, in the May the 1st local elections?
I think it's very difficult to know how many they will win, and I think she was quite right to say that they fight for every vote, and it will be fought in many cases on local issues and about how good a local candidate is. If a Conservative councillor has done a good job and the public warms to them, they have a good chance of being re-elected. And the by-election results for councils in recent months have been rather better for the Conservatives. They've actually done a bit better than Reform. Yep. I mean, Dan is exactly right that her problem is not defeating Labour. Labour defeated itself already. Reform and the Conservatives together have a massive surplus of votes over Labour. But the issue is, can those two parties sort it out so that they can then displace Labour?
Quick question, final question. Will she be here this time next year as leader?
No.
So John
yes, I think she will. I think the Tory party can't keep on swapping leaders every year.
OK. Thanks to my panel. Great there, thank you. Coming up next, a new report has hit out at Brexit's critics, saying it wasn't as bad as Remainers like to insist. But we knew that anyway, didn't we? We'll pick over the findings very shortly.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, today, the former Chancellor Jeremy Hunt took aim at the Brexit doommongers, calling out what he said were exaggerated claims about Britain's departure from the EU, on the downside, of course. Despite backing Remain in 2016, Jeremy Hunt now says that both sides overhyped Brexit's impact, and he warns against a trap of getting too close to Brussels, just as we might be able to sign a new UK-US limited trade deal. With Labour under pressure to define its stance on Brexit and the plans going forward, and Britain navigating global trade turbulence, just how should the UK define itself right now on the world stage? Joining me now is Ian Mansfield, Director of Research at the Policy Exchange. Ian Mansfield, thank you for joining us tonight. Your report today, what's its main conclusion? And do you think Ramona's get it wrong on Brexit?
The main conclusion is that the negative impact of Brexit on UK export has been overly exaggerated. Essentially, a lot of the models which have been used rely on looking at trade flows in aggregate. They make a number of assumptions which don't stand up. And what our report did, which was written by a very good trade expert called Phil Radford, is goes into it sector by sector, looking at automotive and aerospace and clothing. And it finds that when you carry out the analysis at this level, actually the impact on trade is much less than some of the models which are used by academics and used by the OPR would have it.
I was talking to one expert about this a while ago. He said that if you didn't know the date of Brexit and did a line on the economy, you wouldn't be able to pick it out.
I mean, I think that's absolutely right, especially when you throw in COVID as well, which obviously had a hugely disruptive impact, not just on Britain, but all over the world. And actually, our report looks back, and actually, if you go back as far as the turn of the century, our exports to the EU have been perpetually disappointing, in fact, a lot more disappointing than you would have expected when we were in the single market. And actually, since we've left the single market, actually, that trend has continued. So actually, we should be looking at our economy more deeply and looking at why that is, not trying to blame all of our woes on Brexit.
Well, Ian Mansfield, thank you for joining us tonight on GBN Tonight. We do appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Joining me back in the studio now is Sir John Redwood, the former Tory MP and Minister, as well as Mail Sunday commentator Dan Hodges. Sir John Redwood, I can hear you muttering beside me during that. You fully agree with what Ian Mansfield's saying. Is it then a complete waste of time, the Brexit rows for the past 8 years? I've gone grey during them.
Well, all the rows on the Remain side are about people's models and wrong forecasts. We now know the outcome. If you look at the cash value of our exports, last year they were 45% up on 2016, and they were 33% up on 2020, the year we finally got round to leaving, which was the COVID year, which also had an impact. So they are up. And as we've been rightly told, we already sell more things outside the EU than we sell inside the EU. That trend has continued. And we've gone from being number 4 in services, exports around the world, to being number 2. Our services have actually taken off because we can now put some favourable things about services into all these trade deals we have with other countries around the world, which the EU wouldn't let us have.
Dan Hodges, Brexit, a fuss about nothing.
Well, I think I'm afraid to say I think you put your finger on it. I mean, you said, if you looked at somebody told you if you looked at a graph, you wouldn't know Brexit had happened. In relation to the economy, we were told as soon as we saw Brexit, we'd see a graph with growth going up. John is, talking about this wonderful growth the British economy is currently experiencing. I'm not entirely sure many
Exports,
people
not growth of the economy.
No, but we were told growth would happen. We were told we would get this great trade deal with the United States. Instead, happening is we're getting tariffs imposed on us from the United States. I think for most people, the key issue in relation to Brexit would we can take control of our borders. I don't think there's anyone who seriously thinks we do that.
Haven't people failed, Dan Hodges, rather than Brexit itself? It's a failure of politicians to take advantage of it.
Well, but the same people who told us to vote for Brexit were the same politicians who then took control of the government afterwards. It was Boris Johnson who told us to vote for Brexit. It was Boris Johnson who became the Prime Minister afterwards.
We're not going to relive all the past 8 years in 5 minutes, but thank you.
But we can take control of our borders. It's about time the government did it. That's what we voted for.
Just quickly,
we have every right to do it.
on with it. Brexit's over, you two. Just quickly, earlier today, protesters can be heard shouting, "Lords out, people in," interrupting Labour peers in a tribute, wait for it, to the last surviving Battle of Britain pilot, John Paddy Hemingway. Let's have a listen.
Sadly, this will be one of the last significant anniversaries where we have veterans who fought for our freedom still alive.
There we have it. So, John Redwood, shouldn't protesters read the Lord's agenda before they do a protest next time?
Yeah, that was very bad of them, wasn't it? I mean, this was a very important tribute that was being given, and it was extremely sad. But also, we live in a democracy. Governments can make that case. They can get in MPs who believe their case. They shouldn't go in and shout in the chamber where democracy is taking place.
Dan Hodges.
Well, maybe they specifically timed it for that moment because they thought people like us would then talk about it.
Yes.
You know, if it had been about some sort of completely arcane piece of government
But
legislation...
Labour haven't elected a second chamber, the Gordon Brown plans, don't they, eventually?
Yeah, well... Yeah,
let's wait and see.
Let's wait and see what happens with that, yes.
Thanks to my panel, of course. Coming up next, last summer on this show, I spoke to a heartbroken mother who found out the criminal who played a part in her son's murder was set to be released in the government's early release prison scheme. Now she's had an incredible update just for us. Stay tuned.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
For the time being, at least, the UK is warmer than Greece, where cold winds continue to blow. Warm sunshine in Italy, but very unsettled once again for Portugal into Spain. Spells of rain, strong winds, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts in places, and an awful lot of rain as low pressure continues to dominate. That rain spreading into the south of France as well, largely avoiding Italy, where it's going to stay warm and sunny, but this cold wind continues to blow through Greece, although temperatures will recover over the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Cloudier and breezier weather starts to arrive overnight, so that will mean it's a milder night with less frost around, but it will also lead to increasingly showery weather moving up from the southwest and the west during Thursday night and into Friday. So a change is on the way after such a sunny and warm day on Thursday. We keep the clear skies for the time being across central, northern and eastern parts of the country, but further south the cloud is gathering, the wind is picking up, and by the end of the night showers will be affecting parts of southwest England, West Wales and Northern Ireland, perhaps even the odd thunderstorm. But these will be hit and miss. For many it is a dry night, but with more of a breeze and more cloud cover, a frost will be more isolated, mostly sheltered parts of northeast Scotland. That's where the brightest skies will be first thing. I think grey skies predominantly across the south and especially the southwest, where some heavy rain will move in early Friday. That will be spreading into South Wales by this stage. Northern Ireland drier for a time with some bright spells, and certainly across much of Scotland it's mostly dry, although with more cloud in the sky compared with recent mornings. That is except for the far north, where we keep some clearer spells. And really, it's all changed as we go into the late morning, early afternoon period across western parts of the country. It's turning much more unsettled with the winds picking up, outbreaks of rain or showers affecting many parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Western England and Wales. Those showers turning up into the south by the afternoon as well. But towards the northeast, that's where the driest and brightest weather will remain. It will be windier, so it will feel cooler, but temperatures still reaching the high teens. Then on Saturday, those spells of rain spread more eastwards, and for many it is an unsettled day with rain or showers. The most persistent rain will affect Scotland and Northern Ireland, perhaps Northern England later on as well. Some heavy downpours out there. Scattered showers in the south, and Sunday's another showery day with a lot of cloud cover, but more settled weather returns on Monday.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, last summer, I brought you on this programme the story of Dion Barrett, a mother devastated by the murder of a 14-year-old son, Gordon Galt, who died after sustaining wounds from a machete. The teenager's sentence for his role in Gordon's death, Lawson Natty, a Belgium national, was given just 2 years and 8 months in prison. But under Labour's controversial plan to ease overcrowding, he was scheduled to be released early, a decision that left Dion feeling betrayed by our justice system. Here's what Dion told me last summer.
He only lived 5 minutes away from me. Is he going to come back to Newcastle? Are we going to cross each other in the street? And do I think he's going to do it again? Yes, I do. He's showed no remorse whatsoever. After he's killed Gordon, he's then threatened to petrol bomb my house, to rape Gordon's 13-year-old girlfriend, and he's allowed to come back on the street. He's a danger to the public.
Now, Dion has fought tirelessly for justice, questioning how a foreign national convicted in her son's case could be back on Britain Street so soon. But now, in the new development we can reveal tonight, Natty has been deported. And Dion joins me now with the update. I mean, this is a relief, such a relief for you at home.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. So, I've received a letter about 2 weeks ago, stating that Natty's appeal had been denied. So I've been to Wembley this weekend, took Gordon's flag, come back, had a pile of letters. I've just put the pile of letters on the stairs. Didn't open them till the next day. Honest, when I opened it, I couldn't speak.
No.
Saying that he had been deported and he was out of the country now.
Extraordinary, and it may have helped highlighting the case on GB News. I hope it did. I mean, but there's so many more victims like you, aren't there?
Yeah, lots of victims, and I just hope we've gotten a little bit of justice now for Gordon. Hopefully, there's more to come.
Yes, and what's the next stage of this? So he's gone back to Belgium. Do you know where he is now?
No, I don't know if he's in Belgium or Nigeria, because his parents were Nigerian, and so it doesn't state what country he's went to.
But as far as you know, but he's out of the UK and he won't come back, is what you've been told by the government. Because you felt really let down, as so many victims did, didn't you? The government said they had to ease overcrowding, so they had to release prisoners early, and they didn't want to do it. But it was a failure of the state, of both governments, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, he only ended up serving 6 months and then he was released. But it's just a total relief that he can't harm anybody else in this country and he's gone. Hopefully this is a message out there to other people committing these crimes, and I hope it's a statement that you will be deported. But it's just been a long fight.
And we all hope you can start to move on without that threat of seeing him again, or where is he in the UK. We really hope that's your future from now on.
Definitely, definitely, it's a relief.
Have you been to back to Gordon's graveside? Is he? Do you visit him a lot?
No, I don't. I can't stand to go to his graveside. Breaks my heart. It totally breaks my heart. Other members of the family do, yeah. cannot stand. It's like reality when I go.
I think all our hearts go out to you. You're going through so much, and this is the last thing that you needed. Yeah. Well, what's next? What's next for you? You're rebuilding your life as best you can.
Yeah, and the focus now is going to be helping others who's dealing with knife crime, and help. Like, we need stricter sentences, and it's the only way that's going to ease knife crime. It's only getting worse. So if I can help another family, that's my job done.
Are there charities where you live you can speak and help them? I mean, certainly there are charities in London and other big cities around the country, aren't there?
Yeah, there's stuff in London, nothing in Newcastle really. So maybe my focus is going to be setting up a charity, youth work, bringing more youth clubs to keep kids off the streets and teaching them more about knife crime. It's the only way it's going to stop. We've also been trying to get the bleed banks in Newcastle, because there's no bleed banks in Newcastle at all.
Well, if there's any way at GB News that we can keep across this campaigning by you, Dion, we'd love to. So please stay in touch with us.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if it can be, well, a relief story there for Dion Barrett there, of course, the mother of a teenager killed in a knife attack, who's now found out that the individual involved has been sent out of the country, deported. And that's a relief for everyone. Now, coming up next, State of the Nation, with you, Alex. What's your plans today?
Hi, Chris. Well, you know, we want to continue that big story from yesterday on adolescence. I've taken this quite personally, this story, because I came from quite a poor, disadvantaged background as a white young man myself. And so I want to do some justice by those young men tonight. So we're going to talk about the facts. We're the only channel that will. So we're going to do that tonight. We're also going to talk about illegal migrants that are getting discounts to come to the UK if they post their experience on TikTok. So that's going to be a big story. We're going to have that out with our panel. And we're also going to be talking about that net zero leaked document that says it's going to crash the economy. So we've got a big debate on that one. And then finally, we've got a great guest on who's going to talk about the impact of the VAT slap on those private schools. There's a 140-year-old school here that's going to close because of this tax.
Have you seen Adolescence yet?
I haven't, but I've seen the first, not the second episode, the first one I have.
Yes, it's a difficult watch, I think. And we'll look forward to seeing your discussion later. Well, that's all. State of the Nation. It'll be a great show. Thank you for joining tonight. Here's the weather, though, with Aidan McGibbon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Cloudier and breezier weather starts to arrive overnight, so that will mean it's a milder night with less frost around, but it will also lead to increasingly showery weather moving up from the southwest and the west during Thursday night and into Friday. So a change is on the way after such a sunny and warm day on Thursday. We keep the clear skies for the time being across central, northern and eastern parts of the country, but further south the cloud is gathering, the wind is picking up, and by the end of the night showers will be affecting parts of southwest England, West Wales and Northern Ireland, perhaps even the odd thunderstorm. But these will be hit and miss. For many it is a dry night, but with more of a breeze and more cloud cover, a frost will be more isolated, mostly sheltered parts of northeast Scotland. That's where the brightest skies will be first thing. I think grey skies predominantly across the south and especially the southwest, where some heavy rain will move in early Friday. That will be spreading into South Wales by this stage. Northern Ireland drier for a time with some bright spells, and certainly across much of Scotland it's mostly dry, although with more cloud in the sky compared with recent mornings. That is except for the far north, where we keep some clearer spells. And really it's all changed as we go into the late morning, early afternoon period across western parts of the country. It's turning much more unsettled with the winds picking up, outbreaks of rain or showers affecting many parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Western England and Wales. Those showers turning up into the south by the afternoon as well. But towards the northeast, that's where the driest and brightest weather will remain. It will be windier, so it will feel cooler, but temperatures still reaching the high teens. Then on Saturday, those spells of rain spread more eastwards, and for many it is an unsettled day with rain or showers. The most persistent rain will affect Scotland and Northern Ireland, perhaps Northern England later on as well. Some heavy downpours out there. Scattered showers in the south, and Sunday's another showery day with a lot of cloud cover, but more settled weather returns on Monday.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner of the Great British Giveaway, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag, and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches, so you can style it out this spring. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel.